most of the time it's just missing that human touch, that human story.
The reason I'm so scared of it is because it's getting so good.
Art is essentially and fundamentally human, and all you're getting when you use AI is a kind of mishmash, kind of combination of things that already exist, and it couldn't possibly create anything original.
You're listening to the British Council English podcast, brought to you by the world's English experts.
Perfect. Hi everyone, and welcome to our English for Life podcast. I'm joined by Kate and Shereen.
Hello.
And what we're going to talk about is AI and creativity. So we're thinking about everything like art, literature, music, cinema, anything like that, okay? And we're going to go through and explore pluses, minuses, your experience and your ideas about the future and so on within that, okay?
Okay.
So the only way to kick that off is by asking each of you to share your personal experiences or impressions of AI in the area of creative, content and things like that. So, I mean, have you used it? Have you come across things like this? What's your experience? Or have you never touched it or done anything like this? Kate?
Personally, I'm terrified of all technology, and especially AI. So, no, I haven't touched it. I haven't used it. I don't have any. I mean, obviously, all smartphones and everything, they have some kind of AI nowadays, I think, within them. But I don't consciously use any of it. Yeah.
That's fine. Okay. That's why we wanted you as our guest. Because,
It's a real expert in the room here.
Yeah, absolutely. Shereen?
I haven't personally used it, but I do remember in one of the many parties we have in the office, lucky her.
Did you say the many parties you have in the office?
We do,
Whoa.
maybe weekly. We try and find a thing to celebrate
Okay, so go
someone's
work there.
birthday, someone's,
Well, this is going to be a podcast for the
Yeah.
future then.
I'll bring a lot of stories and cake.
How can the rest of us have more parties in our work? Because, okay.
One of our colleagues said a speech and he was like, I want to read you that poem. And he did, and we all clapped. And he was like, that was AI generated. Which was interesting because none of the people who were listening picked up on it. They were like, "Oh, wow! Oh, you're a poet. You're writing poems now." So that was really interesting. Yeah. We didn't pick on it. We didn't know.
And that's really
Is that the
interesting. I mean,
future?
from his point of view, did he do it kind of as a test?
I think he was trying to do a test to be like, because he didn't tell us at the beginning, he just read it and we all clapped. It's like, wow, Anthony, that's amazing. But it wasn't him. Wow. So yeah, I think he did it as a test to see if anyone was going to.
I guess that's better than pretending that it was his. And or maybe he got halfway through and that was what he planned originally and thought, I'd best own up and tell the truth.
Yeah, it's too good.
Okay, but so neither of you, we'll accept, neither of you have been, very closely involved with this yet.
No.
But of course, you've been seeing lots of things online in the news and everything else, lots of examples, lots of demos, lots of controversy. What about what you've seen? What have been some of the interesting, exciting, impressive, or, as Kate said a minute ago, scary things that you've seen so far?
I don't know if I've seen anything scary just yet.
Kate's got the scary corner covered.
I'll leave
That's
that to
fine.
Kate then.
Thanks.
But I think the coolest things that I've seen is the photos, people just take a selfie and then they're traveling the world with that picture. And there are some pictures you can say, oh, this is AI generated, but there are ones that are really, really good. And I'm just, it's impressive. This is something for me.
So photography mainly has been the thing that's kind of impressed you with that. How about for you? What tell us some of the scary stuff.
So, well, I've obviously seen AI photography because it's hard not to see it nowadays, I think. And I will definitely admit that it's impressive. And sometimes it can be very beautiful or even quite moving. Or it's very impressive. But I think the reason I'm so scared of it is because it's getting so good. And just like Shereen's example with her her colleague's poem that wasn't her colleague's poem, it was actually AI's poem, it's getting harder and harder to know what's AI and what's not. And I think that the risks there are quite high. And that's something I'm very conscious of.
Well, some of our listeners, I mean, I know this is hard to believe, but some of our listeners may not know that you're actually a comedian.
What?
One or two. There are some countries where, they've just recently joined us.
I'm not sure that's right, Neil. I'm pretty sure everyone knows that.
Okay, well, there may be a few. There may be a few people out there. Now, let's just think about that for a minute.
Right.
Now, I can't imagine that you would ever sit down and, go into ChatGPT and say, write me a set. Sure.
No.
But can you imagine some kind of context where you might use it for maybe ideas or to generate ideas, or to, if you get stuck, for example, or you've got some kind of, temporary writer's block or something?
I can definitely see the appeal. I would say with the kind of comedy that I write, it's very much based on my life and my personal experience. So it's just mostly it's me telling anecdotes about what's happened in my life and making observations about how I see the world and things. So it's not sort of a clear like setup and punchline style of comedy. So it's not the style of comedy that lends itself to being written by AI. Because I can't say to AI, hey, tell me what happened to me last week. Because AI hopefully doesn't know that yet. Maybe it does.
Yeah, let me see your phone and I'll tell you.
Exactly.
But let's just stop there for a moment and think about that. So, but let's presume that you've actually got something like that. You've got your anecdote, you've got your experience, and it's great. It's really good. And you put that in. You put in your whole story, your whole anecdote, and you're just looking for some little sprinkling of something on top that's just not quite there yet.
Yeah.
How about that kind of thing? Could that?
I don't see myself doing that. But I see the appeal and I see why you would want to. But I think for me, creativity, like writing jokes I do a lot of all sorts of writing.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just selfish, but I'm mostly doing it for me.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. That's kind of the point, is doing it, isn't it? That's why you do it.
Yeah, and obviously when I write a comedy set, I hope the audience will enjoy it. But if the audience doesn't enjoy it, then that's then something for me to work on. And again, it's still for me. It's still a process that I enjoy and I get something from. And if I were to use AI, that all of that side of it would be gone.
We're going to come back to that, I think, a little bit later when we come to another question, and we're going to look about, the real world out there and how it might be used by different people. But let's go to Shereen first. From a kind of creative point of view, is there something that you could see yourself using it for?
I honestly think with the sprinkling thing on top, I don't I see the appealing as well. I don't see why not. And I might use AI for that final touch, maybe for ideas even, or for some sort of inspiration for something. I've used it to inspire me for lesson planning, I'm gonna admit. So, and I found it quite useful. I would never ever just copy and paste ever. But I've had ideas that were like, oh whoa, that's a good one. Maybe I can use that with this video that I've watched, or use that language with this context. So I think it's good when it comes to inspire, maybe, or if you've got an idea and you want that touch, but not something from scratch.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said a moment ago, I would never copy and paste it from one to the other, is an important thing. I wonder if your colleague, if he copied and pasted his poem, or if he took it and then made it more his own.
I'm going to have to ask him that. Maybe. Anthony, did you just copy it, or did you actually add anything to it?
Good question.
And, whether he answers or not, I mean, you'll know that he didn't listen to us. So then you'll be able to just, bring that up.
Kind of force him to.
So let's go into the kind of deeper kind of side of that, which is a lot of people, there are different schools. There are some artists in different fields, whether it's music or film or photography. There are photographers who have used AI to create or to develop their photographs even in different ways, or combine them in other ways. But there are other groups of people, of course, who are just horrified at the very concept. And they would say that, there's no such thing. There's no way. That art is essentially and fundamentally human. And that all you're getting when you use AI is a kind of mishmash, a copy, or, a kind of combination of things that already exist. And it couldn't possibly create anything original. So let's take those two extreme positions and see, where do you fall in that? Somewhere in the middle, or at one end or the other?
I think creative people have always used tools, right? And in many ways, AI can just be another tool. And if that's how you want to use it, then I think it makes sense to use it like that. But I think if you're creating something from scratch and then, well, like Shereen just said about copy and pasting, if you're creating something from scratch and then passing it off as your own, I would say that's not okay. Because it's not yours.
It's not really. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so there you've got like a kind of ethical argument or something like that. But even let's go one step further and say, if you created something and passed it off as your own, I mean, could you? Or would it just have something, would it just not be good enough?
People write a lot of really bad things. So I don't think it being bad would make people know that it's AI. I personally have written a lot of awful things, so like rubbish jokes, terrible stories, unreadable.
I guess that's a very good point. I mean, you say people, there's an awful lot of stuff being produced every day by billions of humans all around the world. And, a very small percentage of it is great.
Yeah.
A relatively small percentage is probably good. And a lot of it's probably...
It's just a learning process, I think. So.
Yeah.
So what would you say?
I think it's quite scary. Like I'm thinking it's getting smarter and smarter every day, right? And it sometimes is scary, and you feel like, okay, maybe flying cars is next. Like, we don't know what's gonna happen.
Oh, I hope so. All my life I've been waiting for that.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I feel like when it comes to creative work, I know I've said like we didn't notice Anthony's poem, but
poor Anthony.
Yeah, I know.
Poor Anthony. His whole career as a poet, you've just destroyed it, or he's just barely begun.
It hasn't begun. That's the point. He didn't write it.
Yes. But,
I just feel like most of the time it's just missing that human touch, that human story. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because I had a really good point that I was just going to make.
Oh.
But I've forgotten it in the time that I was just about to make it there.
That's right.
But it will come back to me in a moment. Yes.
Here we go.
See, I'm getting old.
Don't
Sorry.
lose it again.
This is quite a controversial point, I
Go
think. And I see this a lot. I see at the other extreme, I do see people say, oh, AI could never create music or never create poetry like that because it doesn't have, it's not human. It doesn't have those feelings. It doesn't have access to that. And my feeling sometimes is when you're creating something, when you're a musician and you're creating something new, very often you're just basically drawing on things that you've learned, things you've heard, things you know already, and recombining them into something.
Yeah.
And isn't that just what AI does, but faster and more?
I think so. I don't think that's that controversial.
Okay. Well, it's the idea that maybe humans, the idea of human creativity, obviously there are things that humans have created and create that are new and innovative that have never been done before. And you can't argue that's some kind of genius, to use the word like that. But there's an awful lot of stuff that's basically just taking the input and making some new output.
Yeah. I think what I would say is that in a lot of human output, in terms of creative output and what gets published or recorded or shared, historically, a lot of it's been written by the same demographic of people, which is, as a rule, straight white men who dominate publishing and historically. And therefore, what AI is drawing on is dominated, again, by those people's experience, because that's what is in the canon that it's drawing from. So I think on the one hand, that there's the risk there because it's that we just continue perpetrating the idea that only those people's stories are important. And of course, that's not the case. But then it also perhaps means there's the gap with AI, the bit that AI doesn't have is stories that are coming from those people who don't fit into that demographic and who are underrepresented by historical human creative output.
So could that be a positive thing then in that kind of context, and that it could kind of free up some space for this or something?
I think only if people who fit the dominant demographic just stop creating, which I don't think they should do. I'm not saying that if you're a straight white man, you shouldn't create things because they've dominated the canon. Absolutely not. Like, of course you can. So yeah, I'm not sure it does free up anything, but I think it does mean where humans have a voice that AI isn't going to be able to create, that will be the humans who have been historically underrepresented.
Okay, that's a very interesting point. Okay. Shereen, anything you'd like to add on that one?
I think it's a very interesting point, but
okay.
I think Kate said it all. Well done, Kate.
Yeah, you'd never know that she was an AI. Okay, so let's just very quickly, because we don't have a lot of time left to talk about this. Let's just think about the different fields that we could perhaps talk about, and are there some that you might feel more comfortable with AI in, and some you might feel less? So, for example, there was in the news just today, there was supposed to be a film shown at, the Prince Charles Cinema in London, in Leicester Square, near Leicester Square.
I didn't, but okay.
It's an old cinema, been there for a long time. Nobody needs to know this, just don't listen to me. But there was supposed to be a film shown there, I think today, which was completely AI created, AI scripted and AI directed. And it was pulled out. It was actually done as a kind of, I believe it was done as a kind of protest or as a kind of warning rather than as a kind of, this is what is great.
Okay.
But ended up not going ahead for various reasons. So what I'm just thinking is, are there some areas, whether we're talking about, you mentioned photography earlier and decorative art, for example, poetry, literature, screenwriting, comedy, film. Are there some that you think, music, are there some that you think it might be easier to live with, or that you might find it less of a concern than others?
That's a really good question.
Very good question.
That was a really good question, but it's a really difficult one.
See, when I think of things like design, basic design, like decorative art and stuff like that, if I'm looking for, I don't know, wallpaper, or I'm looking for a picture to hang in my bathroom or something like that. I don't have any pictures in my bathroom, so I believe some people do. So, I mean, that's just an example. And if I did, it would be a picture of my cat, but that's another story.
So you don't need AI's help at all?
Not at all, no. Unless the AI could do a wonderful, like, Andy Warhol kind of version of it. Anyway,
I'm sure it can.
Yeah. But no, I mean, something like that, that wouldn't bother me at all. If I were going to, like, a big shop to buy just some stuff to put on the walls or something like that, or, it wouldn't bother me at all that had been done in that way.
I don't think there's a huge difference between, like, AI that we have now and things like replicas of statues they're just made from, I don't know, like plaster of Paris, and they're just poured into a mold and or made in a factory or something like that. I don't think that's wildly different, because at the end of the day, that's just copying something that's famously very beautiful. Anyone who buys that knows they're not buying the original, like Michelangelo's David or whatever sculpture it might be. So I don't think it's that big a problem. I think maybe I'm just being a snob, but I think probably where I would draw the line is if it's just, like you were saying, stuff that you just hang in your bathroom without thinking about it, or like even a book that you buy in the airport to read on the plane. You've got a 2-hour flight and you're like, I just want something to distract me. And you want something that's not necessarily high quality, but it will distract you for 2 hours. I don't really have a problem with that being AI, because I think a lot of it at the moment is also it's not the kind of heart of human creative output. Things like that are often made by a team of writers who are just bashing out a story quickly. It's not from the heart for them. It's their job. They're almost a factory equivalent of a writer. No disrespect with them, but that's what they're doing.
Would you agree?
I do agree, but it also made me think of is there any like creative side of things where I never watch it if AI has created it? Because you're mentioning that film and it's stuck in my head. I'm like, I might watch it to be like, just like see what is it about, but I'd be really scared because when it comes to film and cinematography, and I love that, and I want to know the story behind it, how all these people were feeling when they were creating that, and the idea that AI would script and film and direct and act and things like that, it's a bit, I don't know, I'm finding it a bit scary, and I don't like the idea.
For me, it would be music. I mean, I can't imagine, I can see a use for AI for music, for like background music on a video someplace where you're not really paying attention. But I can't imagine AI writing a song, that would genuinely touch me or something. Or it might be able to come up with a melody that might make me go feel something. But I can't see the whole package from that. I don't know.
I agree with you. I feel like the idea itself is like, nah, I don't want that, and I don't want it to happen.
Even if it can, you don't want it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it can. I think it definitely can. But I agree, I don't want it to.
Where do you see the future? And any predictions for where things go from here, positive or negative?
Flying cars.
I would count that as a positive myself. I think that there will be quite a strong pushback from a lot of people against AI dominating creative fields.
Okay.
I agree with Kate. Yeah. I think a lot of people are using it more and more, but also a lot of people are really against the idea, and they don't want it to dominate.
Okay, we're going to call it a day there. Thank you both for coming. It's been great speaking to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for listening. We really care about your English, so if you like this episode, make sure you subscribe because we've got lots more great content for you to explore.